Today we're going to talk about Into the Darkness, and this is our experience with Helene, specifically about power. We were without power for over a week. We were without internet service for our home for over 11 days. Now, there was a lot of damage that was done all across our state here in South Carolina, but really the devastation was in western North Carolina and East Tennessee. But we still had a lot of things that we had to deal with. One of the big things for us was a lot of trees down. In fact, trees had fallen on houses, trees were blocking roads. They took down our power lines. We had a number of different trees down. There was some water damage, but not a lot in our area. And then also the winds were just horrific. And so there was a lot of cleanup that needed to be done. But the first thing we did when we heard the storm was coming, it was supposed to just skirt around us, but we ended up having the storm go directly over us. Before the storm came, though, we started doing a prep list. First thing, I got my generator out, made sure that it was running. I have a Generac, it's 3600 watt. It's been a great generator, and we maintain it, keep the tank empty during the time that it's off, and then, of course, I filled it up with non-ethanol fuel when we want to run it. And so we tested it out. Also, we got out our EcoFlow generators, our solar generators, and made sure that they were up and fully charged. We took our cell phones, got those fully charged. In fact, the whole family just went ahead and made sure that things were right. Also, we have what we call our blackout box, and it has a lot of the heavy gauged extension cords, has lanterns, has a lot of batteries, different things that we need in a power outage. And we wanted to make sure that we had enough fuel. Now, having a gas generator, we had at least 20 gallons of gas that we got filled up. One of the things about gasoline is it can be very volatile and it can be dangerous. So you want to make sure you store it properly and safely. But we went ahead and got our tanks full, and then we made sure we had enough propane put back. We don't have access to natural gas, so that was not really an option for us. But in Asheville, North Carolina, they had their natural gas shut down because of the flooding. And so just because you have natural gas and it's a constant stream doesn't mean it's always accessible. So one of the things I love about propane, and gasoline for that matter, is that I can get it, I can store it, and I can use it if I need to. Now, as far as assets, we did have water, and that was a big one. Our municipal water just continued to flow. Of course, if you have wells, things like that, that gives you a water source. But we also have rain catchment systems, and we have a spring, so we had water available. Also, we had cell service, and we had internet on our phones. And that way we could kind of keep up with what was going on. And again, we had gone ahead and gotten our fuel, so we had fuel. One big benefit was the time of year, and we were just coming into fall, so we didn't have to really worry about extreme cold or hot temperatures. So we had just kind of a moderate climate throughout the whole time. Our priorities were our fridge and our freezer. We wanted to make sure that we kept that running for a number of reasons. First off, we went in with some friends and bought part of a cow. We had that stored in our freezer, so the freezer was vital. And then two, it's very expensive for all the items in your refrigerator, and you have food available if you need it. Also, if you don't have a way to power your fridge or your freezer and you lose everything in it, it's a nightmare having to clean it out. We did have a couple of things that we did have to clean out that we just didn't attach power to. But we did transfer those items into our refrigerator and freezer so we could preserve the items in there. Next are lights, making sure that we had lighting. Flashlights, lanterns, candles. We have some other options. We have the BioLight system, which is solar powered, and it was beautiful. Also, we have solar power lights that we have, decorative lights outside that we're able to use as well. But we're going to get into a whole segment on lighting in a following video. Made sure that we had rain gear. With the storm coming over, there was a lot of rain, a lot of flooding. So we wanted to make sure that we were well protected. And the beautiful thing, we didn't have to worry about heat, but it's something that if it was cold weather, that would be a major priority, is having a heat source. Now, as far as our power capabilities, again, we had a Generac 3600 watt gas generator. Ran perfectly, and we maintain it and keep it up. But I'll tell you guys, that was really a blessing, and we were able to keep things charged. And of course, the one downside to a generator is that it does make a lot of noise. There are quieter options, and I know Honda makes one, and I think Harbor Freight has one that's kind of designed after the Honda that's fairly quiet. But one of the problems with a generator and that noise is that it signals other people that you do have a generator. We did get a notice from our local state county government saying that there were reports of generators being stolen. And so we wanted to keep that off at night. Really, guys, all you have to do is run your generator about 3 or 4 hours, shut it off for a while, and then in about 3 or 4 hours, turn it back on. And it will keep your freezer and your refrigerator at top peak. The one thing you don't want to do is to open your refrigerator door or your freezer when you don't have power hooked to it, or do it very minimally. And that way you're not losing all that cold air and it's retaining longer. Now next we had an EcoFlow solar generator, and guys, that worked absolutely beautifully. It was the Delta Max, and it was one of the low ends, but man, it was a godsend. And I'll tell you guys, it would keep our freezer going, because we had done testing on it before, between 16 and 17 hours straight. And so that gives you a lot of capability if you're taking it on and off power. It is powered by solar panels, which we made sure that we had those out, and it would recharge in about 3 to 4 hours under solar. The problem is we had some days that were cloudy and overcast, and it would not take much of a charge then. So we ended up taking our power generator, our gas generator, and charging up our EcoFlow on those days, and it really worked well. In fact, we have a review coming up of the EcoFlow Delta Max with the solar panels, and we'll talk about some upgrades that we're planning later in the video. We also had the Jackary, and it's a battery power bank. It's pretty large, and we could hook up different devices to it. That was a great power source, and it was very portable, easy to carry. EcoFlow is also very portable, and it was one benefit over the standard Generac gas generator because it's really heavy. So we had some portable options which really came in handy, and we could keep our devices going. We had battery backups or power banks, which we had, and we could charge those as well and keep those charged with the EcoFlow, and for that matter with the Jackary. We also had a lot of batteries. We had the Battery Daddy, which is just a box that you can put a lot of different batteries in, and that works really well. And we also have the Olight O-Station, which is a NiCad battery recharging station for AA batteries. It'll charge up to 32 or 34 batteries, and so we had that going. We never ran out of batteries. We didn't really need them. We had a lot of rechargeable items that we could use, but we did use batteries, and for long term it's good to have those options because that's a little portable power source. And really one of the big takeaways from this whole thing was the generator with the gas versus a generator for solar. And if you're kind of going between the two, honestly, they both work well together. If you don't have access to gas, or if you get a dual fuel that needs propane, you can use that to charge up your solar generator when the sun is not at full peak. And so it gives you some redundancy, but it definitely is worth having both. If I only had one, I would have the gas generator. As far as just a power outage. But for long term, you may not be able to have solar to be able to be charged, but sooner or later, the sun's going to come out and you will have access to power. Now, what was our daily routine? We get up in the morning, we turn on our generator, get it rolling, get the refrigerator and freezer back up to the right temperatures, and then we would get out our solar panels, put them out, get them facing the sun, and then as the sun moved, we would just move the panels to face the sun. We wanted full charge. One thing that we found that was really exceptional, and we'll get into this in the lighting section, but I want to mention it, is the BioLight lighting, and it's a solar charging lighting system. It is excellent, and we really enjoyed it, but we'll get into that later. I wanted coffee. I mean, that's an SHTF situation without coffee anyway. So I would hook it up to the EcoFlow, and I would have a full pot of coffee, and then I would pour it into insulated cups to keep it hot. I didn't keep the coffee maker running the whole time. I had a friend of mine that took a Keurig and he hooked it up to his little solar generator, and it almost drained the battery completely. So you don't want to hook up something that needs that kind of power source, and he only got a quarter of a cup of coffee. But there are a lot of different options for coffee, and whether it's camping, you can take a filter, put grounds in it, put it over a cup and pour hot water. Just a lot of different options. But for me, I could have a whole pot of coffee and it would get me through. And if it took a little power off my EcoFlow, I could just hook it up to my generator while it was running. Also, we went and checked all of our lights, devices, our phones, made sure that everything was charged up for the day. As long as the generator was running, we accessed that generator as much as possible. Now, the more you add to your generator, the faster it'll burn fuel. So you need to keep up with that. But honestly, with the devices and the refrigerator and freezer, we were able to get by very well. One thing that we also did was we washed clothes on occasion. And so the EcoFlow, actually we hooked it up to it and it washed a load of clothes without any trouble. On the dryer side though, is going to be tough because it does take a lot of power. And so having a clothesline might be great for drying those clothes. Now the upgrades that we're looking into. First off, we're going to get a dual fuel generator because we want to have the access of propane. One of the things about propane is it's easy to store, it lasts for a long time, you don't have to worry about it, and it's safe. And so having propane is great, and you can get it almost anywhere. A lot of different places have the propane. One thing you will notice though is when you buy it from a commercial vendor like Lowe's or Home Depot, it's 20% less than what it says. So going to a place that actually fills the tank, you can get 100%. So just keep that in mind on how much fuel you do have. But the 20-pounders are great, the 1-pounders are great. But we're having someone come out to estimate giving us a large propane tank. And we want to have that on the property, and that way we could actually have a hot water heater that runs on propane and a stove and a heater, some heat source to be able to heat in case the power goes down. The only problem with the hot water heater and the stove is you need to make sure it's not dependent on an electrical connection to run. And I've had friends that had them and they thought they were going to be in good shape, and then with no power, they had no hot water and they couldn't cook. So make sure that you have some manual way to get that turned on in case you don't have power. One thing about the generator as well is you can get tri-fuel. Now we don't have access to natural gas, so we're getting gas and propane, but there is a tri-fuel where you can actually hook it up to natural gas. One of the things though about natural gas is that while it runs in a pipeline and typically you can have access to it, in Asheville, North Carolina, because of the devastation, they had to shut down the natural gas pipelines. So if you were dependent on natural gas for even a home generator, you would not have been able to utilize it because you didn't have any fuel. Number two, we're going to get one of the EcoFlows that's the Pro 3. And this just gives us more power. There are also battery backups you can hook up and daisy chain to your system. And I'll tell you guys, we were highly impressed with EcoFlow. I want to highly recommend it. And so if you're looking for something, they're not inexpensive, but they're definitely worth it in a power outage. And one of the things about this whole thing was it motivated us to look on beyond what we had and to up our capability. There were a lot of people that made it that had no generator, no nothing, and survived. But we don't want to only survive, we want to thrive. And in a long-term situation, things could be a lot different. Also, we're having someone come out and install a well. We have a spring, we have rain catchment systems, we have water stored up, but in a long-term situation, we really would like to have access to water. One thing about a well is it's dependent on electricity. And so you can actually have a hand pump installed, but that's a lot of work. But you can also hook up a generator to your well system and to be able to access water. So again, it's redundant, but yet in Western North Carolina, a lot of the water sources were contaminated, a lot of the water treatment plants were destroyed, and they just didn't have fresh drinking water. And water is a big one. You can only live 3 days without water. Then for internet, we've just ordered our Starlink, and so we're going to be using Starlink for internet along with our Spectrum internet that we currently use. But that gives us a redundant system in case of a power outage where we can access satellites. The great thing is for those that are in the path of Helene that you can get Starlink for free, and then you pay a monthly fee. But it gives you access to the internet. For us, our business is internet based, so we have to have internet. And so we're going to go ahead and get the Starlink system. And plus, I'm a big fan of Elon Musk and his stand for freedom. And so it takes the pain out of adding Starlink to our system. And one thing that's kind of a side note is that when we were doing a lot of recharging with a lot of different devices, sometimes you would get it mixed up with what needed to be charged and what was charged. And so we set up a system with 2 containers, one for fully charged and one for items that needed to be charged. And really, while that's just a convenience thing, it definitely made things a lot easier. I'm telling you, one of the things about this whole ordeal is that it took a lot of energy, a lot of work, a lot of things that were outside of our normal routine. And so it really put a strain on things. But yet, there was a lot about it that made it very peaceful and comfortable. One of the best things that we experienced was while we had our BioLite system set up. And we ran everything as low as we could to be effective as far as our lighting, is that we sat around at night, hung out, had time to talk, played games, just enjoyed the time. And that's one thing, a lot of times, that there's a lot of distractions that keeps you from really enjoying the basics of life. But one of the beautiful things that came out of this whole disaster is that people came together. And the amount of support that went up to Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee was incredible. And a lot of the people that just went up there to help. We have sent quite a few things up there to help, and we're going to continue to do so because they are still in need of a lot of different items. Many people lost everything, and many people lost their lives. And so helping out, it was just really nice to see. Now that's really contingent on having places that can help. So while this was a kind of a regional disaster, if it gets more larger or if it gets into a nationwide event, there's going to be less and less help if it gets into a worldwide event. So having things to be able to take care of you and your loved ones is vital. And guys, we're getting back to just survival. And while a lot of the things that we talked about gives you more quality of life, really it's about surviving the situation. And in a long-term situation, a lot of these things are just going to buy us more time. And that way we can make better decisions. So again, we have some other segments coming up. Security was a big one. We have everything locked into electronics on our security systems except for a few things, and we've upgraded those. Also with lighting, also with cooking. So we're going to do some different video segments about these different subjects. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. We have a spring, we have rain catchment systems, we have water.